You think about that person that you are when you have that success. What are some of her personality traits? How does she show up? And I'm curious, is discipline one of the traits that she has? Because I can bet you that it probably is, even if you don't want to admit it.
Welcome to Empower and Evolve, the vortex of growth that you have been looking for. I am your host, Kat Tunnyberg. I'm a mindset coach for female leaders, and I am committed to helping you cultivate the mindset shifts that generate you wild success. Each episode, we explore ways to tap into your true potential. We face the shadows that hold you back, and we embrace the journey toward your most abundant life. If you love what you learn here today, then I invite you to share this episode with someone that needs to hear it. Right, it's time to plunge in.
Hello, my love. Welcome back to another episode of Soulful Business inside the Empower and Evolve podcast. You might be able to hear my voice is a little bit off. I've actually been sick for the last couple of days, and I'm only just starting to feel better. But I knew I needed to get this podcast episode recorded. So here I am with my slightly off voice delivering you this week's episode on discipline. Not that one of the sexiest topics, is it? I don't think that when we think about the words soulful business, that discipline is necessarily one of the things that comes to mind for us. Yet, discipline, it's so important for a successful business. And still one of the top things that I see most of my clients struggle with when they first get started in business. And even years down the track, like, discipline is a muscle that you have to continue building in order for your business to be successful. So let's talk about it. Talk about discipline. So sexy. I don't know if you've ever heard the saying, discipline breeds freedom. If you haven't, it's probably one of the most profound truths I have come across in my life. Discipline breeds freedom. What does that even mean? First of all, I'd like for you to consider, what does freedom mean to me? Like, what does freedom mean to me? Because most often my clients that I'm working with, when it comes to building a successful business, often one of the reasons why they want that is freedom. Freedom is so different from person to person, and what freedom is to me might not be freedom to you. And if we think about freedom and the term, like on its core, it probably would mean that you wouldn't be doing anything. Like, it would just be like you live in the forest, you live off the land, completely sovereign, and you don't have a business. Like, it's just like, because business is not necessarily freedom. If you have a business, you have something that you're tied to, which is not necessarily freedom. So I want you to start thinking about, what is freedom to you? I'll share with you what freedom is to me. Freedom to me is to have the opportunity to choose how I spend my time. Keyword here, choose. Freedom to me is having enough finances to make choices based on whatever I want to do, where I want to go, how I want to spend my time, all those things. Again, comes back to choice for me. And freedom is also being able to make an impact to me. So that's what freedom is to me. So maybe the better word for me to use was choice. Yet that's not as sexy as freedom, is it? Freedom sounds way sexier. I'm building my business because I want freedom. What I actually truly want is I want to make impact and I want to have a choice. And in order to choose, I need to cultivate my discipline muscle. Because in order for me to build my business to a place where I have choice, I will have needed to be disciplined enough to show up for it, even during the times when I don't feel like it. I remember when I did my master practitioner training in NLP, we did the Myers-Briggs test. I can't remember which one of the points it was. I can't remember the exact story, but basically, the teacher said like, "Oh, people who have this probably don't love a fixed schedule, and they're just like these free birds who don't use a calendar." And I raised my hand. I was like, "I have that personal trait, but I actually really love my calendar." The teacher said to me, "Knowing you, you will have taught yourself to love your calendar and planning and discipline." And I just realized that's so true. When I first got started in business, I wasn't very disciplined. I was 27 years old. I wanted freedom to the extent that the word actually means. I wanted to just do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. Building a business whilst also having a full-time job, actually having like 3 different jobs that was more than a full-time job at that point, went against that. So in order for me to work towards the freedom that I truly crave, the choices that I truly crave, because at that point I was living paycheck to paycheck and I didn't have much time. I didn't have time freedom. I didn't have financial freedom. I didn't have the opportunity to choose these things. In order for me to work towards a life where I had that choice, I needed to learn to become disciplined. And I needed to learn to manage my time and show up even when I didn't feel like it. And like I mentioned earlier, this is a muscle that you build. So I started building this muscle. It was not comfortable, not at all. Didn't feel like it most of the time. Didn't feel like, on top of my 50-hour work week, showing up on social media, posting regularly, working on my personal development. It was not comfortable. It was so far from comfortable. But my why became big enough. Like I could just see what was possible for me in the future if I would just become a little bit more disciplined and start building this business and start showing up. The version of me that I knew I needed to become in order to hold that successful business. This is a question that you can ask yourself right now. You think about your dreams and your goals for your soulful business, the business that lights you up. When you think about that, and when you think about the person you are, and just feel into it, don't get it stuck in your head, just feel into it and allow your vision to come to you. You think about that person that you are when you have that success. What are some of her personality traits? How does she show up? And I'm curious, is discipline one of the traits that she has? Because I can bet you that it probably is, even if you don't want to admit it. All of the most successful people that I personally know, as well as the ones that I'm learning from and reading, like their books and taking their courses, etc., one thing that really, really stands out is that they are all disciplined. That they all show up when they say they will show up. They, instead of getting stuck in the scroll hole, they create before they consume. They plan out their week. They make sure that they have things they want to achieve that week, goals that are their non-negotiables that they know need to get done that week. And then they might have some other goals that are like bonus goals that if they get all their non-negotiables done and they still have time, they will work on those goals. Like they're disciplined in how they spend their time. They are disciplined when it comes to knowing what they need to do, and they are disciplined in their choices. They choose how they want to spend their time because they know that sometimes we need to make some short-term sacrifices in order to have long-term goals. And I'm not the person who's going to tell you, the whole quote, like, work today, like, as if you have, I can't even remember what the quote is exactly. I've done a post about it, but something along the lines of like, work harder than anyone else today so that in the future you can live like no one else can. Like, I'm not a fan of that because I've bought into that story and it burned me out, and it ended up making me take 5 steps backwards. So I'm not a fan of that, but I am a fan of still choice, being disciplined, choosing to show up for certain things. Like, what's more important to you? Is it more important for you to go and catch up with one of your friends every day instead of showing up for 60 minutes for your business to build your dream? Like, what's more important to you? And I'm not saying that you shouldn't spend any time with your friends. I actually make sure that each week I have some color code my calendar, and yellow is my fun stuff. Make sure that I have some yellow somewhere in my calendar to make sure that I'm doing fun things, because that's important to me. I'm even disciplined with making sure that I schedule in fun things, but I am very, 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 very aware when I'm starting to get stuck, for instance, in the scroll hole, instead of creating and using social media to connect with others and to share my mission and vision and invite people into my world, whether that's through my free offerings or through some of my paid offerings. I make sure I add value. Like, that's so much more important to me than getting stuck in the scroll hole. And I catch myself. And again, I'm coming back to what I shared with you at the beginning of this episode. This is a muscle that you build over time. When you first start to embrace discipline, it's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to battle against it. You're going to, fight against it. You're going to do all the things that are not going to help you. But I want you to remember, what is it that you're working towards? What is it? What is your long-term goal? And the version of you that has that goal, does she embody discipline? And if she does, then I invite you to start to become more disciplined with your time. Choose how you spend your time. Disciplined with the activities that you do. So when it comes to business, making sure that you are doing your non-negotiables, your revenue creating activities, whatever they might be for you. For me, my non-negotiables in my business on my work days, which is 5 days a week, is posting every day, selling every day, going through my inboxes every day. Those are my non-negotiables in business. Even on the days where I have so much to do, make sure that these 3 things are done. Oh, and engagement as well, engaging with others on social media. I literally every day when I'm working, make sure I tick those things off. They are the first things that need to get done, on top of whatever my weekly non-negotiables are for that week. Like, every week on a Sunday, I sit down and I plan out my week, and I look at my week ahead and I write down all the things that I need to do that week, move closer towards my goals. And I make sure I do those things. Great example. One of those things this week was recording my podcast episode. I got sick on Friday, which was going to be the day where I was going to record this podcast. So here I am on a Sunday recording this podcast because I knew that it was something that I needed to get done. Like, that is discipline. So make discipline with your choices, discipline with the activities that you do, discipline with what you allow into your ears. Just start to think about, who are the people that you surround yourself with? Are they positive people who are striving for more, who are looking for the positive in the world, or are they the negative Nazis? The ones that are always complaining, super judgmental. Become so disciplined with who you allow into your closed network, because you know that you are going to be the average of the 5 people that you spend most of your time with. So if you hang around a bunch of losers who are constantly negative, that's going to become you. So instead, start to become so disciplined with who you allow into your sphere of influence, and make sure that the content that you're consuming, the conversations that you're having, they're all helping you elevate. They're all helping you grow. They're all filling your cup. They make you feel good. Like, become so disciplined with who you allow in. That's probably like one of my key suggestions to you when it comes to discipline. And then become so disciplined with sticking to your word. When you say you're going to do something, fucking do it. Like, that's true self-trust, personal power. It all comes from you actually doing what you said you were going to do. Because every time that you don't, you're teaching yourself that you can't be trusted, that you're unreliable, that that's just not that important. And how is that going to help you towards building that soulful business that is going to light you up and allow you to live a life that once was only a dream? I want you to think about that. Discipline breeds freedom. The more disciplined you become, the easier it will be for you to go after your dreams. And remember, the more disciplined you become, the easier it will be for you to continue being disciplined. Because it is a muscle, and you build it with repetition. And if this crazy, free-spirited hippie I'm pointing towards me can learn to become disciplined, can learn to make her calendar her boss, then so can you. Because I'm not special. I've just learned to become disciplined, to show up, and to make better choices. And I know you can do too. I'll catch you next week for the final episode of the Soulful Business series inside the Empower and Evolve podcast. If you love this episode, I'd love to invite you to share it on your socials. And if you know someone who needs a little bit of discipline, who needs a little bit of a wake-up call, then share this podcast episode with them. And if you had any big aha moments, please send me a message on socials. I'd love to hear from you. All right. See you next week.
Thank you for joining me on the Empower and Evolve podcast. I hope that today's episode has sparked a new insight, or perhaps reminded you of your own power to manifest change. If you found value in our time together, I invite you to subscribe and share this podcast with someone who might need a little reminder of their own magical power. It would mean the world to me if you could take just 2 minutes to review the podcast and help it reach more people. And remember, the journey of transformation is ongoing. And sometimes the most powerful step that we can take is to simply pause, breathe, and realign with our deepest intention. Until next time.